Hello and welcome to the Bettendorf Public Library's Take-Home Workshop. This month we're going to be doing Orizomegami, which is a Japanese style of folding and then dyeing paper. I learned this craft from the library's Creative Bug subscription. Creative Bug is an online warehouse of thousands of tutorials and daily inspirations and classes covering a wide range of crafts, and this is one of the ones that I first found there. So we're going to be doing this. It makes lovely designs of paper that you could use for note cards. You could use it for wrapping paper, which is what I will be using some of it for. If you are a bookbinder, you could do it. It's good for end papers. So there's a lot of uses for anytime you need an attractive decorative paper. So let's take a look at the kit and see what's in the kit. In your kit, you are going to find several sheets of paper. This is a rice paper. You can do this sort of dip dyeing on tissue paper or even on copy paper, but the rice paper is nice. It's a little bit more authentic since it is a Japanese rice paper, and it also is a very absorbent paper. So for dip dyeing, it's good because it really grabs onto that dye and holds it up. So we gave you several sheets of that. We also gave you some food coloring, which is what we will be using for dyeing today. What we're asking you to provide are bowls or dishes of some sort. That's what we'll put our dye in. You want it to be kind of a wide bottomed, so a bowl is probably better than a cup, but since we're using food safe food coloring to dye this as opposed to paint, if it's a bowl that you can wash it and then eat out of it again afterwards, and that's fine. You would want to protect your work surface. I'm just going to put a couple sheets of wax paper down. Again, it's food coloring, it could stain. If you want to get gloves to protect your hands, you can do that. And then you can also, you also will need some water. So pretty simple, not a lot of needs there. So let's go ahead and get started. So the secret to Orizomegami is how you fold your paper. And depending on how you fold your paper, you're going to get different designs. Folding is the first step, dipping in the dye is the second, and both of those will affect. This one, you can see the squares had a smaller, a tighter design, fold design than this one. If with a large sheet of paper like we're using, if you make the folds really tight, then you'll see it gets a little harder. This was the outer edge of what I was dipping, and this was the inner edge. So you get a real gradient in terms of how well the dye takes. So we're going to be using a little bit of a bigger fold today because we have such big sheets of paper. I'm going to show you 3 different folds. They all start basically the same, which is a zigzag fold, you know, like you're making a paper fan. And when I do mine, and you do not, the thing about this is that it is super flexible. So you can do it the way I'm showing you, or you can do it other ways. You can wing it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm folding mine in half, then I'm gonna fold it in half again, then I'm gonna fold it in half one more time, and I'm using those fold marks to indicate where I would do a zigzag fold. If you just wanted to start in with the zigzag fold without doing these measurements, you can absolutely do that. So we're gonna fold it where these lines indicate one way, and then back the other. And then again, and then back the other. And the reason I pre-folded it in half, in half, and in half was just so that my my zigzags would be even, pretty even, and it would come out to the end of the page. So it's, again, it's not really a necessary thing, and even under the best of circumstances, obviously it's not perfect. So I folded it just zigzag like a fan. This is the beginning fold for all of our designs. And now I'm just going to fold it in half. And then I'm going to take the ends and fold them back to the center. So basically what I'm ending up with is another zigzag. So it's just a fan fold and then another fan fold. And you're gonna end up with a square that's a pretty big size. So that's our first fold. Moving on to our second fold. This is, we started again with that same fan shape, that same zigzag, but now instead of making another square zigzag, I'm gonna zigzag again, and this time I'm going to go from the bottom up to the side here. So I'm going to make a triangle. One thing you want to remember is you don't want to just like keep folding like this, because you don't want the inner folds to be totally surrounded by the outer folds. You need to zigzag to give all of your layers the best optimum exposure to the die. So we're just going to zigzag back and forth, taking our bottom here and just keep zigzagging so that you're making a triangle zigzag. And you're going to end up with a little extra edge, and that's okay. We're just going to go ahead and fold that one in too. So again, it's just a zigzag, but this time it's a triangle zigzag. So that's our second fold. For our third fold, we're going to start with that same accordion fold, back and forth, back and forth. Then we're going to fold it in half one more time, and then unfold it. This center line that we just created, it's just going to be a guide to get us started. So now, just like in the triangle fold, we're going to take that bottom right corner, but instead of bringing it over to the side like this, we're just going to bring it up to that center fold. So the crease will go from this corner up to the center fold. Or I'm sorry, the edge will go from this corner up to the center fold. Then we're going to flip it over, and again, we want that accordion fold to make sure that all of our layers get more even exposure to our die. And we're going to fold this up so that the bottom edge is at the fold. Basically, the folded edge is running along the side there. So you have a triangle with the raw edge here running down the center. And then we're just going to continue the way we did before, bringing these bottom edges up to the side, flipping it over back and forth so that it's an accordion fold. And again, we're going to be left with that little bit of tail, and we're just going to fold that over. So those are our three folds: our square accordion, our triangle accordion, and then our kind of off-center triangle accordion, I guess is what we could call that. So let's get ready to do some dyeing. So dyeing is really where your creativity comes into play. You can use whatever colors you want, whatever patterns you want. What we're going to do is we're going to just put some of the dye, and I'm not being sparing with the dye. I want bold, vivid colors. If you want more of a pastel, then maybe just a few drops of dye and more water. I'm going with a fair amount of dye and less water. Use a lot of yellow because it's a lighter color. Then I'm going to add a little bit of water to each bowl just a touch. I basically just want to kind of cover the bottom of the bowl. And I'll just give them a little swirl carefully to mix them up, if they even need that. So let's start with our squares. So we folded an accordion fold the long way and then another accordion fold the short way. And I'm going to just dip, for each of my colors, I'm going to dip the edge. And I'm going to dip them quickly because I want to leave some white in the middle. So we're going to dip it, give it a little shake, and you'll see that came through as the blue. Let's see here. I'm going to do green next. And what I'm trying to do is, I don't think I want the green and the red next to each other, because since they're complementary colors, if they mix, they're going to make brown. And I don't think I want brown for this particular piece. There's my yellow, and now my red. And you'll see it continues to wick up there even after I dip. And that's going to keep going for a while. So by the time this is all done, this white section in the middle is going to be considerably smaller. The longer you hold it in there, the more liquid it pulls up, the farther that's going to leach on. So be aware of that. Now I'm going to set this aside. Here's the hard part. This rice paper is very delicate when wet. The same feature that makes it so good for this, because it soaks up the liquid so well, makes it very difficult to unfold while the paper is wet. And so I'm gonna let these sit for at least overnight, for me. You probably don't need to let them sit that long, but that's when I'll have access to them again and be able to show them to you as I unfold them. So they're gonna sit for a while. So now I have just my standard triangle fold, and I'm going to try maybe a Christmassy sort of thing. So I'm going to do the bottom edge in green, and if you have to bend your paper a little bit to get it to fit in your die, then go ahead. Give that a little. Then I'm going to do the tip in red. Then I'm going to stop, because again, in this particular one, I want the separation of the colors. In this one, you can see my white is almost all the way gone. This is going to be a real rainbow. But this one, I want my red and my green separate. Now I have my last triangle fold, that kind of off-center one. What to do? We're gonna do just corners. And we're going to do blue and yellow and green. We'll go for something a little more springy. So we're gonna get a lot of blue. You know what? No, well, yeah. And of course, if you know your basic color theory, you can do whatever colors you want because you have the primary colors in your kit. So if you want to make some purple dye, you can do that either by dipping in blue and then dipping in red, or just mixing them before you even start. So we're going to get our yellow going, and then I'm going to do this other corner in the green. It is so fascinating to me to watch it just wick on up there. And if you've ever done, like, think back to your science fair days, you may have done chromatography when you were a kid. And it's, you know, the process of determining what chemicals are present by what color is leaching up through the paper. Look at this. You can see. See, I have a blue edge on my green. It's separated out as it was going. I don't know if it's going to dry that way. We will find out. So I've dipped all three of those, and I'm going to let them sit. And I'm going to let them sit for quite a while so that they can get pretty dry before I unfold them. So we will be back through the magic of video. We will be back shortly with the reveal. I've let my paper dry, and this has actually been sitting for close to 48 hours. So let's see how they look. You'll notice, so like this one, my red and green, that I left a considerable amount of white in the middle. The white is all gone. So if you want to leave some white, just barely dip it, apparently. So let's take a look at our unfolds. This was the first one I did, which was just an accordion fold one way and then accordion fold long way. And you can see the outer parts of your accordion fold are going to be considerably darker. But let's unfold. And so this is the one where for each square I did a green edge, a yellow edge, a red edge, a blue edge, and the green and the red are obviously dominant, but there's enough of the others in there that it makes for some very lovely colors. You'll see you can tell where all your fold lines were, and that is actually part of the beauty of this project, that it's so much variation even within one piece. So you could cut the smaller, darker pieces maybe to use for one project, or use the whole thing in all its variegated glory. So this is the one that was just a very straightforward accordion fold the long way and then accordion fold the short way. So now let's look at this one, which was again an accordion fold, but instead of square, triangles. So we did the accordion fold the long way and then an accordion fold triangular the short way. And if we unfold this one, now if my memory serves, this one I just did in blue and yellow, again hoping for some white, and I was a little bit more successful. There's more white in this one, but again our fold lines are very clear, our outer edges are very dark, but I don't know that there's a way to do this that it's not going to turn out good if you know your color theory. Now, if again, the red and green, we'll see how that looked, because if you get red and green together, you're going to get brown, right? So this was the fold, an accordion fold, and then kind of a bias triangular accordion fold. And I did red and green, and I left a lot of space for white, which didn't work, but look at the design. I love this. This is my favorite. So you didn't really get the brown where your green and your red matched, because a little edge of the blue seeped out of the green, and so the blue is what matched. So it's almost more of a purple. So not what I was thinking it was going to look like, I'm going to confess to you, but I think it is fabulous. This sort of separation of color, if you're using a different dye, that's going to be very different. So if you're using like an acrylic paint or something like that, I suspect that you won't get this separation of color. But we got it, and I still really like it. That those variations, I think, are one of the things that make this a very, very interesting craft, because there's that element of the unknown where you can get a variety of things. So now, what am I going to do with my papers? Since these are such nice big sheets, it would be nice, it would make, I think, wonderful wrapping paper. Again, if you're a bookbinder, you could use them for end notes. You could make note cards and line the envelopes with this. I want to see what you're going to do with your papers. So tag us on social media and show us either the papers that you've done or what you've done with those papers. Would be wonderful. And I want to thank the Bettendorf Public Library Foundation and Quad City Bank and Trust for sponsoring this take-home workshop.